Welcome to the Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2013 Finance New Features course presented by Andreas Günther. This is the first course in the Finance series. This course will cover the new features in cost accounting, so knowledge of previous versions of Microsoft Dynamics NAV is a prerequisite. This course was built on beta versions of Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2013, so there may be some slight differences in the released product. Now, let me introduce Andreas.
Hello, my name is Andreas Günther. I'm working as escalation engineer in the Dynamics NAV EMEA support team. And today I'm going to talk about cost accounting in the new Dynamics NAV 2013 version. What I will do is giving you an overview over all the topics covered in the workbook, which I recommend reading for further detail. In addition to that, I will provide you with two demonstrations, one right in the beginning before we go into the details, showing you briefly where are the new features hidden in the department menu and what new objects you have available in Dynamics NAV 2013, and one longer demonstration at the end of the presentation using a script to show all the functionalities working. In the workbook you will find more examples, a lot of screenshots, and more detailed information. So this video is meant to be an overview of all the information, but you should refer to the workbook. But before we go into the application and in all the different modules, I would share with you some thoughts about why a company should use cost accounting if they already have all the data recorded in the general ledger postings. Maybe they even have used dimensions, so they are able to report some numbers using cost centers already without using any cost accounting. I also included some links here in this presentation. You can use them to get a very quick overview about general ledger and cost accounting postings on Wikipedia. And there will be a training material available for financial training, one basic and one advanced training material, and chapter 5 in the advanced training material, this is course number 80535, will be the cost accounting. So if this is your first experience with cost accounting, I suggest that you read some background information and at least the training material, because what is covered in the workbook is advanced information which you can utilize best if you have the basic information already present. So let's start with some considerations why a company should use cost accounting at all, because all the data should be present in the general ledger. Why use cost accounting? General ledger and cost accounting have two different priorities, so to say. In general ledger, you have to fulfill your legal requirements. All your postings have to be done by a document of some kind. So you need to be able to show your auditors why this posting was done and why this information recorded for this document is in the way it is in the system. In cost accounting, on the other hand, you have freedom. You can post whatever you like. Nobody will audit your cost accounting. You will be able to transfer your general ledger postings as a starting point, but then you can add as many postings as you like, and you can add more cost types than you have general ledger accounts if this is okay for you, or you can even reduce the number of cost types because you are more interested in cost centers or cost objects in cost accounting. So in cost accounting, you're more interested about understanding your costs, where they come from, what they are used for, so who is producing the costs. And of course, you can add allocations So you can distribute your costs which are posted, for example, with the general cost center in the general ledger to your different departments using any allocation type you like. So the cost accounting module in Dynamics NAV 2013 isn't that new at all. It was previously part of the Swiss localization, and it was released for 5.0 for other countries as well. In NAV 2013, this was integrated completely into the W1 version, so it will be available for all countries. And there have been some enhancements, to name some. You can now set any dimension at cost center and cost object. In the old version, you only could use the global dimension 1 and global dimension 2. You can export and import budgets from Excel. You have new fields for amounts. And you have full integration account schedules, which gives you the opportunity to mix your data from general ledger and cost accounting. And in addition to that, there are multiple usability enhancements, new actions, fact boxes, and so on. Okay, let's take a look how this looks like in the application. Let me switch to the application here. As you can see, I'm now in Dynamics NAV 2013 and in the department menu. Here below the financial management, you have the cost accounting available. And if I click here, you find all the options available in cost accounting. Let's first take a look at the chart of cost types. So the chart of cost types is pretty much the same as the chart of accounts, but you can combine different GL accounts to only one cost type by using a totaling here in the account range. But other than that, you can see that you have pretty much all the expenses accounts available, and also the accounts for earnings, and all of these accounts have a setting to align them to one GL account. You can have cost types which are not present in the GL, but then you have to post them manually in your cost accounting module. Let's take a look at some of the other columns here, and as you can see, it's just the standard. You have net change value, and you have some default dimensions connected here. Okay, back to cost accounting. Next, we have the chart of cost centers and the chart of cost objects. So both of these cost accounting dimensions are assigned to one dimension. In this database, the cost centers are assigned to departments and the cost objects are assigned to projects. We will take a look later where you can change these alignment. So these are all the cost centers, and if you compare them to the cost centers you normally have, or to the departments you normally have in the Kronos company, you see that it's a lot more than you have in the standard. This is because in the cost accounting you can have a lot more cost centers than you have dimensions. Of course, if you want to transfer data from your general ledger to your cost accounting, all these cost centers or all these departments used in the general ledger should be created here in the cost accounting as well. But you can choose to have a lot more detail here in the cost accounting, since this is all about costs and where they come from. And you can use allocations, for example, or manual postings to transfer the costs from one cost center to another, or to post manually additional costs that you don't have in your general journal, for example, calculatory costs. And because objects pretty much look the same, these are in the standard connected to the projects. And as you can see here, we have totally different cost objects than we have projects in the standard company. Just this Mercedes is present here. This is because I created that manually to have some costs transferred from the general ledger to the cost accounting. Going back here, next we have the cost allocations. This is where you define which costs should be transferred from where to where and using which method. In the Kronos company you have some examples, as you can see here. You have, for example, per square meter, by number of employees, amounts per kilometer, and so on and so on. And if we open up this one here and see how it's defined, you can see that you have a source cost center on the top, and you can have multiple cost centers or cost objects to target the costs from here. Here the values. What exactly this means, static or one of these dynamic options here, and how you use these fields in detail, you can read in the workbook and in the Advanced Financial Management training documentation. And of course you have budgets. They are pretty much the same as you have them in the journal ledger. However, there's one difference. Here in the top, in the filtering section, you have to select either a cost center filter or a cost object filter if you want to enter data manually. So if I want to record some costs, for example for building, I have to select this one here, and then of course I have to select net change, and let's say we want to enter numbers per month, and now I can choose to enter these numbers here. It's not possible to enter a value for both dimensions at the same time. You will get an error message. The same way you cannot post on these two dimensions at the same time. In the journal you will get an error message as well. Yes, we want to discard. Let's go back to cost accounting. Take a look on the cost journals. This is where you would record manual costs, for example, calculatory costs, and you can set a cost type, a cost center, and a cost object manually. And you can post whatever you like, but you have to add a cost type, cost center, and cost object for balancing purposes also. So you always need a cost type and a balance cost type, and then depending on your posting, either a cost center or a cost object, and the same on the balancing side. Let's take a look at the account schedules first before we go to the setup. As you can see here, we have all the account schedules available. These two are for general ledger postings. Here's one for cash flow, and of course we have some for cost accounting. So if we go here and open this up, you see that there is a new totaling type in the account schedule, and this is cost type or cost type total, where you can access data from your cost accounting. Okay, let's take a quick look to the setup. Cost accounting setup. And as you can see here, start from the bottom. This is the assignment to one of the dimensions. So here the cost center dimension was assigned to the department dimension, and the cost object dimension was assigned to the project dimension. And if we click here, these are the standard dimensions that you have in the general ledger. For allocations, you can set up number series, but as you can see here, these are not the standard number series. These are just values which will be increased whenever you add a new allocation. And here on top, we have some settings. First one here is to be able to start on a different date. So imagine that a partner has a customer who worked since 10 years with NAV and has a lot of data, you can set this date then to the beginning of the business year so that he do not have the need to transfer all the data, which may not have cost centers anyway. By using these three fields here, you have control about how the system should react when there's a new cost center or a new department dimension created. You can either set it to automatic so that both tables are automatically synchronized, or you can set it to prompt, then you will get a message what you want to do if you want to create automatically a cost center dimension when you add a department dimension, or you can set it to no alignment. Then it's your problem to have all your data synchronized. This one here is for posting. So if you do a GL posting, you can set it to auto transfer, and then all postings assigned with a cost center or cost type and posted to a profit and loss account will be transferred automatically to the cost accounting. Okay, I think that's it. It's a very, very, very quick overview of the cost accounting module. You just have seen all the pages you can open up and where you can do the settings, but there's a lot more to discover, and as I said before, I recommend reading the training manual, the basic training manual for this module, and after that you can take a look in the workbook and see the more advanced settings and maybe problems that will occur when you try to set up the cost accounting. In the next couple of minutes, I would like to give you a quick overview of all the modules in this course. I will summarize the key points so that you can look them up in the workbook and read them in more detail. And I will finish this presentation with a demo script created by Nuno Bento, which will cover all the parts of cost accounting so that you have seen at least once all the major processes in cost accounting at work. In Module 1, I will cover some advanced setup considerations, and if you see the key points I highlighted here, one important thing is if you have a partner asking you what he should tell a customer if the customer now wants to use the new module, what they should do, how they should implement it. The most important thing is that they have, before starting using the module, have a clear concept of cost centers and cost objects. Cost type is not so important. You can use the cost types in a one-to-one relationship to the GL accounts. If you spend some time considering cost types as well, you may be able to shrink down the data size, but you can also use the cost types in a one-to-one relationship. But for cost centers and cost objects, if you start using them, then you should use them consequently and consistently. Otherwise, you cannot compare different posting periods, for example. The next thing is renaming can be tricky. As you know, with cost types, there is a relationship to GL accounts, and this relationship is set by a filter or by a range field in the cost types. For cost centers and cost objects, there is no such field. That means that the cost center ADM, for example, is linked to the dimension department ADM. And if you rename the dimension value, then you have no problem as long as you have set up the alignment to prompt or automatically so that the cost center will be changed as well. But if you just rename the cost center or the cost object, you break the link to your GL account dimensions. So that is one important thing that you should consider when renaming cost centers or cost objects. Then you know that cost centers and the cost objects are linked to one of the dimensions in the general ledger, and you can change these linkage. If you do this, all of your existing postings will keep in the system, will keep in the cost entries, and with the new setting you will get all newly created entries, and you will get newly created entries with the new settings. So if you need to change this, you will not be able to compare any data with the previous month, for example, when you use the old setting in the old month, and you have to rework all account schedules and filtering and so on. The next module covers posting and transferring data and corrections. So in cost accounting, it is possible to delete complete registers, and you can also block registers when you do not want people to delete them accidentally. So we'll cover some of these topics in this module. And for transferring, I will discuss when it's better to use the automatic transfer or the batch transfer. So batch transfer, obviously, when you do it once a month, then you have more data to be transferred, so it will take longer, but automatic transfer is maybe not so useful if you already have performance issues in your system. And then I will introduce a new possibility to transfer the data by setting up a job queue and transferring the entries. To be able to do so, you need to change the code unit a bit, but we will do this in the workbook and it will be very easy. The next module is the largest module in the complete script. It covers allocations. And it will describe the difference between static and dynamic allocations. It will show a method how you use Excel to find circle settings in your allocations. For example, if you start with one allocation, transfer all the costs to others, to other cost centers, and then at the last allocation you transfer some amount back to the first allocation. If you have a lot of allocations, then these things are hard to find, but using Excel it is very easy. So you will learn possibility how to debug these settings, and I will explain in more detail the amount per share and percentage per share allocation settings, so that it's maybe not so confusing anymore. And for dynamic allocations, there is a table showing you where the data is stored for the different base values you can select in the dynamic allocations, and how to add a new base value. Module 4 will cover reporting and analysis. Basically, it will cover the account schedules and what kind of problems you may have when you mix data from cost accounting and general ledger data. Because in cost accounting you only have cost centers and cost object as dimensions, but not all the others. But in general ledger you have all the dimensions available. Module 5 will cover only one topic in budgeting. So what you need to take into account when copying budgets between cost accounting and general ledger. It all comes down to the number of dimensions you're using in your budgets and the number of dimensions that will may be land then later in the cost accounting budget. And last but not least, module 6 and 7 will deal about questions I asked myself when creating this document and some of the limitations I found, or some of the known issues you will also find in the document. Here in the presentation I decided to list all the questions I asked myself and quickly go through them with you. So you can not select number series for document numbers in the cost journals. That is not possible currently. And you also have no recurring journals for cost postings. But you can either use an allocation to do recurring postings, or you can set the cost journal to a value that it will not be deleted after posting, so you can reuse it. You cannot assign begin and totals to a GL account. You can only cost types. There is a standard permission set for cost accounting, which is called cost. There's no role center for cost accounting specifically, but you can use the accounting manager. This is role center 9001, and the account manager will have the cost accounting module in his menu. When you use security filters, you should take care of the filter settings, because cost centers and cost objects are not dimensions directly, so you have to set the filters to both values. And as we said before, only cost centers and cost objects will be transferred from GL to cost accounting. And if you use both dimensions in the general ledger, then only the cost center will be transferred. And if you use any number of dimensions in the general ledger in cost accounting, you will only have these two dimensions available. So that's it. I will start the application. You can follow along by using the script in the appendix in the workbook. Let's go quickly to the cost accounting and check the cost accounting setups. As you can see here, the cost center dimension is aligned to the department dimension, cost objects are aligned to project, and all alignment options are set to prompt, which will mean that we will get an information if something is changed, and we have the option to choose to change it in the other module as well. Okay, let's first go to the chart of cost types. If I go here, you can see we have several totaling types, which is only useful for the end totals, as you can see here, but we have also some ranges which reflect a range in the GL entries. So for example, in this cost type 7110, we have all accounts in this range reflected. So if we check back to the chart of accounts, if I click back to general ledger and then chart of accounts, and as you can see here, 7110. Let's see if we have the field in here. Yes, here it is. You can see the cost types are assigned to this range, which is reflected in the chart of cost types. So if we go back to the chart of cost types, and for example now change this range here, we open up the card and change it to 7110 to 7130 and 7191 to 7193. This would mean deactivating the alignment for the accounts in between. One other thing here is this combine entries field. If I click this open, here you can select to combine the entries transferred from the general ledger to the cost accounting. Now it's set to day. This will mean that for each day we will have one number on per dimension on this account, on this cost type. And if I would have set it to none, then all entries posted in the general ledger will be posted the same way here in the cost accounting. But let's have that set today as it was before. Now click close here, and in the chart of cost types under actions we have the functionality to register these cost types in the chart of accounts. And if I now do this with my new setting here and say yes, I get the message that 85 cost types are processed and logged into 101 GL accounts. And if we now go back to the GL accounts, chart of accounts, and again back to our account range here and go to the right, and you can see here we have a gap, so these accounts are no longer aligned to the cost accounting. Okay, follow the next steps. Go to the chart of cost centers, and as you can see here, we have a lot of cost centers here, and only some of them, a very few of them, are actually dimensions in the general journal. So we have a lot more values in here than we have in the general ledger postings. I can show you that by clicking here to dimension values. So we have only these 3 dimensions here and a lot more in here. So if we now want to create a new dimension, you can close this down, go back to financial management, administration, dimensions, dimensions. Now we enter a purchase dimension. Click OK. And now we get asked if we want to create the same dimension also in the cost accounting. This is because we've set the alignment to prompt. I say yes. And now the cost center purchase has been created in the cost accounting as well. Let's go back there and check this out. Chart of cost centers, and where is it? Purchase. Let's do some changes to get this aligned. So as you can see here, we have a sorting order, and now change this accordingly. So sorting order should be H, and the cost subtype will be main cost center, and we now indent this. We have it sorted correctly here under the main cost centers. As you can see here, purchase. Okay, next we want to transfer some postings from the GL to the cost accounting, and to do so we go back to the cost accounting main menu, periodic activities, cost accounting, transfer GL entries to cost accounting, and now we get a question if we want to have the values transferred. If we say yes, then we will have 3 new entries. I click OK. And let's see what has been done. So I go back to the cost accounting and the history and the registers. And as you can see here, this is the last transfer, 3 entries. And we can take a look at the entries created. And as you can see here, we have cost type 6110 for cost center sales, and then we have these values registered here for December and for January. We go back to cost accounting and take a look at the cost journals. As you can see here, the cost journal is a journal like any other journal as well. So you have a cost type which you can select. You have the possibility to select the cost center and the cost object. You can only use one of these values at a time. And on the right side, we also have the balance values of all these fields, so that you can use this journal to post something manually in the cost accounting. If you do not want to use this batch, then you can set the transfer from GL to cost accounting to automatic transfer. Let's try that. Click here, and then we go back to the setup of the cost accounting, and we check this here, auto transfer from GL. You get the message that if you set this to yes, all existing entries will be transferred. Since we have transferred already, I should not make any difference. I say yes, and then I click OK. And I will go to the general journals and enter a manual posting here in the general journal, not on the cost accounting. So we'll keep this to the work date, which is the same. Document type I will leave empty, and let's enter account number here, office supplies, purchase 1,500 euros, and I have a balance account automatically set up here. And for the dimensions, let's choose the fields here. Where is our department code here? Let's add the department code in the line, and then we will set this to purchase our newly created value. And we click post, and yes, and OK, and OK. Now we check back to the cost accounting, to the registers. You see that we have a new register here, and as you can see here, our posting was automatically transferred to the cost accounting without any other actions necessary. Okay, let's assume that we want to allocate some of these purchase values to other cost centers. Let's take a look at how this will be done. So in cost accounting, we go to cost allocations, and we want to start a completely new allocation, and we name it furniture sales. Variant, call it test. This is to be able to filter for only this one. Cost center code will be purchase, and cost type code will be 9901. And if I use the right field, then this will work. And for the target, I will use the same cost type, so that we have no change there. We just want to target a cost object. So put this to chairs, sale of chairs, and we want to do this based on items sold. And then we enter an item filter. And if you follow along in the script, these items I'm entering here were the items which were prepared for posting in the prerequisite section. Okay. So some of it goes to chairs and the rest goes to furniture. Furniture, where is it? Here. Also items sold. And if I now click calculate allocation key, as you can see here, the share is automatically calculated. So 55 and 27, which will be then calculated into a percentage value, 67% and 32%. And if we want to take a look how this 55 was calculated, what we can do is to take this item filter, copy it, and go back to inventory and use, for example, the inventory valuation report. Leave the starting date blank, ending date should be work date, and then, as you can see here, I already did it. Paste in the filter here and click on preview. And as you can see here, 18 plus 7 plus 22 plus 8 will equal to the 55 that we have seen in the allocation itself. And to prove this, we could post another line in our item journal. So let's go back to warehouse, inventory, item journals, and we post again on our working date, post a sale, and we use the ten pieces. Yes. And put it to the department sales. And then post. Yes. Lines were posted. And now we go back to our allocation. Take this one. And as you can see here, the share is still 55, but if we update it, now it's 65, and the percentages have been adjusted accordingly. Now assume that we want to do something with this allocation, so we close it down, go back to the cost accounting, periodic activity cost accounting, and then we click on allocate costs, and the group will be test, so that only our newly created allocation will be allocated, and then we click OK, and yes, we want to do it, and 3 allocation entries have been created. Let's take a look at them. Go back to the register, As you can see here, they are marked as allocations, and you can see we have 3 entries, and it's the total amount of what was posted earlier. So let's take a look at the entries and make this a bit bigger here. And as you can see here, we have the chairs and the furniture that have received amounts and was reduced from the purchasing. And now the last part that we have on the list is budgeting. So to go to the budgets, we close that down and then go to cost accounting budgets. And now we're on the cost budget. As you can see here, we have the default budget already created, but as in the general journal, you can create budgets as many as you like. And you can, for example, use this window to enter and view budgets. So use a period, for example, a month, to enter the values. And of course, you can show the budget by cost center. As you can see here, now we have the cost centers here, or by cost object. Same, but cost object as columns. Or in this view, cost budget movement, where you actually can see the net change, budgeted amounts, balanced budget, and so on. So different views are available for the budgeting. And if I now open up one budget, then you have also options to copy the budget. For example, copy the cost budget to another cost budget. If I open up this quickly, you can choose where to copy to, and also enter some filters and the number of copies and so on. Or you can copy a current GL budget to the cost budget, and again you choose where to copy to. And you can copy a cost budget to a GL budget, so the other way around, it's also available. And of course you can export and import the budgets to Excel, export it first, then edit and import later. But this is more or less the same functionality that you have available in the general journal as well. Now assume that we want to enter a new value in our cost budget. Let's do it as described in the script using cost budget by cost center. And then look up 8210 and set this to net change and enter the 1500 for purchasing. I close this down, go back to cost accounting, and in the cost budget registers you can see my test entries and the last entry I did here. And let's open this up, show the entries, and here you can see on my working date I entered this 1500. And other than in the general ledger, you can actually use these numbers you have here in the cost budget entries and use them to create actual cost accounting postings. So to do so, we close this down, and go to periodic activities, cost accounting, and then transfer budget to actual. The budget name was default. The date was the working date. And the cost center was purchase And if I now click OK, yes, yes, and if we then go back to the registers, this time the cost registers, you see as we now have a transfer from budget. And if I click on cost entries, you see that all the entries I created, so my 2 test entries and the entry here from the video, was transferred to the cost entries. And next we can create our allocation again. If we go back to our cost allocations and then go to allocate cost, and we now enter our budget name here, and test is already set here, and we say OK, yes, and click OK. And if we go back to the cost budget registers, you see here we can use the allocations also to allocate in our budget. And as you can see here, we have our manually entered value transferred to the cost objects using the same dynamic key that we have used for the cost entries. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for reviewing this course. Additional new feature courses can be found on the Partner Learning Center. If you have specific questions on any of the features shown, you can contact Partner Technical Services by emailing askpts@microsoft.com or call 1-800-MPN-SOLVE.